And thanks, Graciela, for making some time for our Seattle Speaks conversation here. Maybe to start with how your leadership has had to adjust over these last 8 or so months as the leader of a major law firm here in Seattle with presence in other places.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. I'm grateful to be here and grateful to talk with you. You know, it's been one of those surreal circumstances as a leader. I'm not that far into my leadership at Schwabe. I've only been a leader for, coming up on 3.5 years now. So I'm relatively new, I would say, or at least it felt like it. And then all of a sudden you're hit with a global pandemic and the effects of the economic depression that followed that. And it's been challenging, of course, and you got to operate in crisis mode and you have to do it quick. You don't have time to sort of think about that or ponder about what crisis mode means versus your usual run-of-the-mill sort of leadership tasks that you had, which seemed like a lifetime ago now, of course. Um, so, how has it changed? Well, you have to adapt and you have to do it really quick. And fortunately, I have a pretty well-developed sense of urgency. And that helped, I think, in addressing the pandemic, especially in the early times. We could move fairly quickly. The team that surrounds me is largely responsible for many of our successes, I think, and they also move pretty quickly and have a deep understanding of the industry that we operate in and how we needed to move. And we did. We took action really early in terms of some of the financial aspects that we needed to do, all while really trying to remain true to our values. And early, that meant trying to avoid layoffs and furloughing people and how could we do that together and how could we bear the economic uncertainty together. So we made a lot of decisions about that. At Schwabe, we really care about our clients, and so we put those clients at the forefront like we always do. So it wasn't necessarily a change, it was just a change in urgency.
Mm-hmm.
We communicated with our clients pretty quickly. We did that often. I held conversations with a lot of leaders, just leader to leader, and mostly, it was in part to help myself and in part to help them and to understand where they were and whether we had resources or information or education to bring to bear to offer solutions for them. And in times I learned quite a bit about what folks were doing, and that just helped to get that helped everybody, I think, in those conversations. We learned from each other, and it helped address new circumstances that none of us had faced before.
And are these you're learning from your clients or from your own team members?
All of it together, but our clients certainly, and actually our competitors too, I will say.
Yeah.
We form groups of, we already participate in at least 2 peer groups, and the peer groups would get together, if not anything, just to sigh together and go, wow, what does this mean for us? And sort of bask, if you will, in the uncertainty. It was quite daunting. And I think those peer groups helped, and certainly talking leader to leader with some of our clients helped as well. And I remember those calls that I got from other leaders saying, hey, how are you doing? How are you holding up? I really appreciate those. And it helped to really cement those relationships, I think. Internally, I would say one of the things I learned was people really wanted to know that someone was in charge. People really took comfort in understanding what our direction was, how we were approaching, how we were thinking about the various challenges we faced. So we took a position of over communicating. So we communicated with our team, our staff, our attorneys, our shareholders often. I was surprised at how much people wanted and were appreciative of hearing from me and other leaders in the firm, and how they just wanted to know what we were thinking, how, they were uncertain, they were feeling the pressure of the pandemic, and they also wanted some reassurances that we were doing well, and that somebody just was in charge, I guess. So we over communicated. We did weekly emails. We still do them, although we've changed the way we do those weekly emails. We did town halls. We did Zoom calls. Of course, there are Zoom meetings. We still do those regularly. And that, the time periods have changed a little bit from the crisis, now that we've changed from crisis to marathon, but we still do them. So we are over communicating. That's what I would say.
What are the other ways that you've had to step up and support your team through this period, in addition to really emphasizing communication?
We really embrace the whole person. We tried to make sure that we were understanding people's fears and concerns, illness in some cases, family demands in others, mental health issues, with a combination of both empathy and flexibility in terms of the job. We at Schwabe can't fix the pandemic. We can't address, although we can contribute to trying to reduce the contagion, but we can, and we do, really help to our people and keep them from being sick by instituting certain measures internally, and from making sure that they could work at home, providing the necessary technology in order to do that and support. So those are some of the things we did internally. A few months back, we also changed course, right? We corrected from being just crisis mode, constantly addressing the problems, to really embracing this is where we're at for a while. So now we have to switch into marathon mode. And so not making sure we keep our focus on where we're going and what we're doing. We've launched the strategic reboot. We're operating as if this is how we're going to operate for a while, at least. And then just address, like, where are we going? What is the long-term prospects look like? And long-term, by the way, used to be about 5 years. Now it's closer to a year, maybe 6
Right.
months. So that's changed.
And do you feel like you have a sense of the implications on productivity and engagement and culture of the ways that you're working now? Are you able to sort of measure that, or do you have a sense of the impacts on each of those areas?
Well, it's certainly, industry-wide in the U.S., the demand for legal services has gone down slightly, and we've seen that in our own sort of financial projections and the like. But in terms of how productive and how effective we are at providing legal services to our clients, we haven't missed a beat, really. I've been surprised at how quickly we've been able to pivot. As many organizations, I don't think we're alone in that feeling or in that sense, but we were able to really pivot quickly, and we are doing what we do in ways that we never thought we would be able to do. Court cases, depositions, mediations, to name a few, meeting with clients and figuring out how to do that, and helping clients meet with us over virtually. And in very few instances in person where we need to, and in person, how do you manage that if you need to do that in person? And there is occasion for doing that, although it's the exception. And all the while really trying to make sure that the essence of Schwabe remains important and valuable. So we do things like happy hours. Of course, everybody's been doing that. We do them very Schwabe-like, so we've been sending happy hour kits. We were able to send to all of the children that were going back to school, we sent them back to school kits. And, I'm sorry to say that I'm not sure if your kids were on our list, but maybe next year.
Yeah, we'll put our request in for sure.
Oh, they were terrific, actually.
Kits?
Yeah, we sent out back to school kits for kids, and they had all kinds of, all kinds of activities, all kinds of cool little things in there. to keep folks interested. I don't have school-age kids anymore, but my sister does, and I sent them to my nieces, so they really appreciated them. And we've heard from a lot of client kids that received them, as well as just kids of our own employees, and they really dug them.
What are some of the things that you think we'll never go back to once we get to a vaccine and widely available treatment? What are those things as far as how we work, how you serve your clients, that we'll maybe abandon? And what do you think will be sort of lasting on the other side?
Yeah, I do think that I think Zoom meetings remain. I think most of us have, I never had a Zoom meeting prior to the pandemic. Many are in that same circumstance. So I think Zoom meetings remain, virtual meetings, whatever mechanism you use. I think those remain. I think it helps save time. It makes the use of time more effective and efficient. You don't have to travel necessarily. I think the fear of contagion is still going to remain. We feel it, right? I've been to a restaurant where I'm outside and I'm still like, okay, should I not touch anything? And, things like that. So I think that fear is going to remain, and it's going to lead to situations where we didn't foresee them before. But so I think Zoom meetings remain. I think the way we do trainings, we do quite a bit of client trainings on certain aspects of law, and we've been doing those virtually. I think the clients really appreciate that. I can't imagine that we go back to something different than that. I do think, although I think conferences will go back to being in person, I think they're going to be diminished, because we know that we can be effective and efficient at virtual conferencing or virtual meetings. So I think that those will remain. I think for sure working from home is going to be part of our DNA, how we manage that so as to encourage collaboration and innovation and remaining connected and really feeding that culture piece of your organization and making sure that you have that culture and you're very intentional about creating it and feeding it and growing it.
Is that part of Schwabe's culture before COVID? Were you a big work from home, virtual work?
Not really. Some, but not all. I would say I travel quite a bit, or used to anyways. So for me, it was a different world, but I would say for an attorney, not so much. Sometimes, you could work maybe a day you worked from home, or worked at a different location. And, but mostly we were working together in the office, I would say, in our various offices, 8 of them. I think that's different. I think now we are more about working from home. I think we know we can do it and we don't suffer too much from it. But I do think there are instances, for example, devising client strategy or the strategy of a case, how you're going to address it. You need to be in person. I think that creates a different dynamic than if you're virtual. And so I think that some of that will come back as necessary. But we'll see. It wasn't really something we did on the whole, I would say, like many organizations. But now it feels to me like we will not be going back as we did before. We're probably going to have a hybrid model. We're already looking at perhaps reducing our footprint in terms of real estate, like other companies are doing, upping our game in terms of technology. I think we need to make investments quicker than we had. We were already there. We actually were really well prepared for this. But I think going forward, we got to double down on that. And how do we make those investments and improvements faster than perhaps our original timeline suggested? So we're looking into that already. Yeah, things of that nature. That's what occupies my mind right now. How are we going to continue and come out of this pandemic well positioned?
And then with the significant racial social uprising that we've seen in our community across the country in response to the injustices in our criminal justice system and in policing, how is Schwabe addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion? How have you been leading in those areas within the firm?
You know, as a person of color leading in an industry that doesn't see much diversity or that has seen a very slow change, I have to say that you know, Schwabe is perhaps, the way I think of it is, Schwabe is an organization of multiple truths. And what I mean by that is we have a long-standing tradition of contributing to community, contributing to social justice issues by doing things like pro bono work, by um, all manner of things. I can go on that list, but we have a strong history of that going back decades, even under prior leadership. It's no surprise that my ascension to leadership is part of that tradition, certainly. And it's a value that I think we hold dear at Schwabe. Now, having said that, the other truth is that we haven't done enough and we've fallen short, I think. And I don't think these things are subject to sort of a binary kind of decision. Either you're, you know, supporting or not supporting you, or you're doing something, but it's not enough, and so forth and so on. I just don't think, I think we have this strong tradition and strong value of diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, but we haven't, like the legal industry as a whole, we're slow to change. We haven't done enough. So what do I aim to do, you know, moving forward is really double down on those issues. One of the things we did earlier this year is really focus our pro bono efforts on social justice issues. We took on some of the Ramos cases in Oregon, which are incarcerated folks, trying to help them. So we're doing that. I'm actually participating in that myself. And other issues, we brought in a former partner of us, Jamila Johnson. She was based in Seattle, and she's now with the Southern Poverty Law Center to speak to us on the eve of Juneteenth to talk about her efforts at trying to free some of those folks that have been incarcerated unfairly, perhaps. So we're doing those kinds of things and doubling down our interest in our, for example, our pro bono efforts. We're also looking internally, like what about retention, especially of diverse attorneys and staff? How can we improve on that? And we aim to sort of kick it up a notch in the coming years. And so we, you know, as we look at things like rebooting the strategic plan, I can tell you that one of my initiatives is to really make DEI issues, be them retention and others, recruitment, retention, that kind of thing, and how we go out to community and how we contribute to that. One of the pillars that we'll focus on, which means, you know, the entirety of the organization is focused on that. We funnel money into those efforts, we funnel efforts, and that guides where we go in the future. So those are the kinds of things that we're hoping to do in the coming year or so years.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your leadership lessons and how you all have had to pivot and serve your team and clients, and also continue with your tradition of addressing DEI within your own work and the organization, and how you can step up and contribute, and appreciate your long partnership and support of the Downtown Seattle Association, and thank you for your service on our board as well, Graciela.
Oh, thanks, John. It's been a great ride to be a member of the board of the Downtown Seattle Association. I really appreciate the voices you hear, and more than anything, the deep sense of community and building that downtown Seattle is palpable in that organization, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Well, thanks so much, and I hope I don't have to ask you for a back to school kit next year, and that we're all back in the buildings. But if you're still handing them out, I'll let my kids know, and we'll.
Yeah, I'll make sure to ask, and if we have some, we'll send them your way.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Graciela. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Continue to stay safe and well, and same to your team.
Thank you. You and you the same. Thank you.